Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Into this meeting of our second in a week. So Oxfordshire District Council Cabinet. I'm David Lorraine, I'm the legal counsel. I'm going to be chairing the meeting. We have members all present in the room. I don't think anybody's joining us online. We have officers in the room and online who will jump in as need requires. So we don't have anybody who hasn't been here many times before, so I won't run through the evacuation procedures. And we'll go straight to, would you like to take the roll call, please, Becky?
Yes, of course. So I'll start in alphabetical order. Members confirm they're present. So Councillor Maggie Filipova-Rivers. Present in the room. Councillor Georgina Harris in the room. Brilliant. Councillor Lee Rawlins.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor David Lorraine.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Anne-Marie Simpson. Present in the room. Brilliant. And Councillor Tony Morgan.
Present in the room.
Thank you. We have received apologies from Councillor Peter Paul Barker and Councillor Sam James Laurie.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 is the minutes, but that is to follow, seeing as our last meeting was only a week ago. They're still being checked. Item 4 is declarations of interest. I'm not expecting any, given the nature of the agenda. If anybody happens to own a graveyard. If anything occurs to you during the course of the discussion, then please do let me know. Item 5 is urgent business. I don't have anything particular to announce today. Item 6 is public participation. I haven't heard of anyone.
No registered speakers.
No one's registered. Item 7 is recommendations and updates from other committees. This came around as a supplementary paper. Has everyone seen that? It's a recommendation update from Scrutiny Committee.
Yes. Would you like me to give a short intro?
Yeah, if you could give us a summary of it.
Yes, of course. They met on 25th of September to review the financial outturn report for 2024 to 25. But as a flavour of discussion, the committee spoke about the underspend, project delays, and delivery challenges. They also raised points around the disabled facilities grants and the broader context of local government reorganisation. But in conclusion, the committee noted the report, and regarding the outturn variance of, I believe it's 15.7 million on the capital budget, the committee recommended that portfolio holders consider ways to improve spend against the agreed capital programme. So I'll open it up to Cabinet if anyone wishes to respond.
That was particularly to do with delays in capital expenditure, wasn't it? I think we'll address that when we get to that relevant item on the agenda.
So the report doesn't actually go through to Cabinet. It was a scrutiny only report, but there was a recommendation to Cabinet that came out of it. Obviously, it does reference the budget.
Yeah. When we come to budget setting, it's about having an eye towards where we've allocated the money for capital spend, but haven't spent it.
And we've got monitoring as well.
Yes. Moving on to item 8, which is operational net zero annual progress report. And Councillor Morgan, are you going to introduce us?
I am indeed. Operational net zero annual progress report. The paper reports on carbon emissions from the council's own operations and is an update from last year's annual report. It covers actual emissions in the financial year up to March 2025, and it includes projections to 2030 and beyond. The paper aims to take a realistic view of the council's likely progress moving forwards, taking into account current plans and the context in which the council is operating. Teams are right across the council, including property, waste and technical services, have contributed to the report, by providing details of their latest plans for our building stock and our council fleet. The report sets out 5 scenarios which are cumulative, each one building on the ones before. We move to projections. The report presents a mixed picture for the future. On the positive side, the council's making substantial progress in decarbonising its leisure centres, and there are major projects underway in Henley, Didcot, in Berensfield and in Wheatley, as well as at the Cornerstone Arts Centre in Didcot. The council has successfully won funding from the government's public sector decarbonisation scheme for these works. Across the council, teams are taking action to lease and to buy electric vehicles, for example, for food waste collection, as well as use by grounds maintenance and public convenience supervisors. On the other hand, local government reorganisation has presented us with some major challenges. Major investments are unlikely before the 2028 year, and some decisions now have to be postponed and will only be made by a future authority, a future unitary authority. The council's proposed new waste depot will be located in Great Hazley. Although the site provides the facilities required by the council, its location does result in an increase in the mileage driven by waste collection vehicles, as set out in the report. Finally, the council's trial of an electric 26-tonne waste collection vehicle unfortunately gave no clear results due to technical problems with the vehicle provided. As such, we currently have no evidence that electric large vehicles have the range needed to cope with our rural waste collection routes. The actual data presented in the report shows an increase in the council's emissions in the year to March 2025, and this is due to an increase in the number of households in the district and the number of garden waste customers, which have affected the waste collection mileage. We have more people and more houses to deal with. The winter of 2024 was also cooler than the previous year, and that affected winter fuel use.
And do we have a seconder? Thanks, Maggie. Do we have any questions? And we have Dominic Lamb, our officer, present if you've got taxing problems, taxing questions. I don't see any hands up. In which case, Maggie, would you like to speak now?
Yeah, just very briefly. I mean, it's nice to have a kind of a balanced view. This is where we are. Local government reorganisation presents some challenges, and I do hope that whatever happens next, the new shadow authority will carry on in the good work that has been done. But we do need to note that actually some really good progress has been made to date, and a massive thanks to our climate team. Is that the right name for it? Climate and nature team?
Climate advisors.
Oh, close enough. So yeah, thank you guys. And yeah, my hope is that this good practice that you have created will be carried forward. Yeah, where we are.
I'll speak on this. I could equally give the same speech to the next item. I refuse to be downhearted. There's a little upturn this year, but this is a very long-term project, and I think that we are doing all the things that we can reasonably be expected to do compared with other organisations. I think we're making giant steps. We have had some criticism around our waste vehicles, but frankly, the technology isn't there yet to make any replacements. But in terms of our own property and our own ways of working, we've taken some huge steps, as you can see, over the period of this report. And the fact that it ticks up a little bit this year, I don't think is a major issue when we're looking at a 20, 30, 40 year progress report. So I would thank the team for the report. Does anyone else want to speak? Councillor Heritage.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to briefly thank officers. Thanks to the team, because I've been involved in the decarbonisation programmes for Cornerstone and the leisure centres, and I think it's amazing, fabulous work that's going on. It's a huge project. And I know that LGR means that some longer term projects may be on hold. And I know that there are always other challenges, and there's more to do. But even so, this is still a legacy, and it's work that we're building on. And I know that huge progress has been made, and I'm really delighted to have seen what I've seen so far. So I think I know there's more work to do, but this is a legacy, and credit where it's due. So thank you to all those the officers who've been involved in that, and all those who've contributed to those programmes.
Just a couple of quick points. I think we're absolutely right about the vehicles. There might be opportunities with biofuels. There might be opportunities with hydrogen in future. People are talking about electric, but even when electric works, and even when electric gives you some limited range, it's such a massive weight penalty, which rather detracts from all that you're trying to do. So there's no free lunch there. And the only thing I would say is that I believe we're still looking for a better depot relative to Great Paisley, and that's not going to come anytime soon. But in the people that we've got out there searching for it, I think maybe we could look at changing the brief somewhat, and recognising that there isn't a free lunch, there isn't a quick, easy win, and that we should be accepting that if there were an opportunity, it might be so far out where we actually have to have it connected into electricity and power, and that might take, as I discovered at the OCC M Group Drayton Depot, perhaps even 5 years and a lot of money to install. But we should be open to looking ahead in that way, is all I'm saying, because that does bring quite a penalty of cost and carbon footprint. But we are where we are. We have to do what we're doing, and we're right to do it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Tony, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I just went through all the points before. I'd just like to join colleagues in thanking officers for the work done. I think we need to reflect that there is no low-hanging fruit on this matter anymore. We've done the easy things. Everything else now is a grind. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's being done fantastically, but it is hard work to drive this forward. And just like to thank again officers for their work in this and the work that remains to be done.
Okay, so we're asked to note the progress on this report. Everybody happy to note?
Yeah. Enthusiastic to know.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9. Is this you again, Tony?
It is indeed. The paper sets out the progress that's been made towards meeting South Oxfordshire's target to be a net zero district by 2045. And the report is for information only. It presents data on greenhouse gas emissions in South Oxfordshire in the 2023 calendar year, which was released a couple of months ago. I'll just talk through a couple of main statistics. 792.3 kilotons of carbon dioxide of greenhouse gas emissions were emitted in South Oxfordshire in 2023, and that was 5% lower than in 2022. It equates to 5.2 tonnes per person, and this is less than the UK average, which is actually 8.7 tonnes per person. So that is a difference of 3.5. That's quite a significant difference. The biggest proportion of emissions came from the transport sector, 42% of emissions overall. This matches the UK-wide picture. These emissions are from freight and passenger transport, with road vehicles being the largest source of emissions. There's been an annual average reduction of 5% from 2019 through to 2023. The rate of decarbonisation is accelerating slightly, but it's still lagging behind where it needs to be in order to reach net zero targets. And just a note for people, emissions from house building construction phases are captured in the industry sector. Once building are occupied, emissions are captured in the domestic sector. As you will all know, unlike the council's operational emissions discussed in the item before, there is a limit on what the council can do to reduce district-wide emissions, as a large proportion are completely outside of our control as a district council. However, the council does have an influence, and over the last few years, there are a number of activities which have supported reductions in district-wide emissions. We've undertaken a programme of work to reduce the council's operational greenhouse gas emissions through including major decarbonisation projects at council-owned leisure centres. We've supported Oxfordshire County Council, the delivery of the Home Upgrade Grant Funding Scheme, which installed retrofitting measures to 240 homes in Oxfordshire. We've provided funding to local organisations for energy efficiency initiatives and for decarbonisation measures. We've installed 62 public electric vehicle charging bays in council-owned car parks to provide the infrastructure needed for residents and businesses to make the transition to electric vehicles. There are also a number of programmes we're working on which will support emission reductions in the future. We are participating in the Oxfordshire Local Area Energy Planning Programme to establish the pathway for how we get from our current energy system to the energy system we need for a net zero future. We are exploring options for introducing stronger net zero requirements of buildings through the planning process, and we're exploring the potential for development of low carbon heat networks in 3 locations in South Oxfordshire, those being Berensfield, Cullen and Didcot. The council will continue to proactively look for opportunities to accelerate the rate of decarbonisation in the district, in particular by working with partner organisations as set out in the Nature and Climate Action Plan. We'll continue to report annually and monitor district-wide emissions through this data released by the government. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Have a seconder? Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Right.
So very unusually, my parish council actually own their street lights. I know, I don't know how that happened. But anyway, they have been changing them and to LED and have made some spectacular savings in terms of their energy bills. It is really like incredible. But how would you be aware, for the purposes of this report, be aware of that change happening? And is there, and I'm just using it anecdotally, I'm sure there are others, you know, if a community centre somewhere changes to, you know, air source or ground source heat pump, like how would we know? Like who would, you know, especially if that community centre is leased or it's in kind of a trust or whatever. So I guess the question I'm asking is, how do we know that this is these things?
Probably a question for Dominic.
Oh, definitely Dominic. I was Dominic all the time.
or indeed my colleague Jen. Go for the paper. I mean, I think the overall answer to that is it is a national data set. So those sort of changes we picked out by reductions in demand for electricity nationally, which is then apportioned locally. I don't know, Jessie, whether you want to add to that answer.
No, I think that was, you've got it, Dom. I think you can't really track like particular actions, the carbon savings from that through to this data. It's too kind of high level, but yeah, just that overall trend will be seen eventually. There is a 2-year delay as well with this data. This is the data published from 2023, and it was only published, released to us a couple of months ago. So we have to kind of factor in that delay as well.
And the carbon footprint of collecting that data would be. Any further questions? In which case, Lee, would you like to speak?
I think we're doing well, but I would just draw out how long it takes to make these changes. And obviously, we're looking at 2023 data here, but if you look at the changes that we might make to planning, the length that it takes for new sites and new allocations and so forth to work their way through to actual completion, it's a long time. And so it is for many of the other sectors where there are changes in capital projects that existing stuff whether it's trucks or anything else, comes to its end and gets gradually moved on to the next iteration, which might be a Euro 6 engine, or it might in future be changes of fuels. But just to note, this takes a long time to drive through. And so we haven't yet seen all the fruits of what we've set in motion and what we are trying to support.
I'll speak now. I'm going to be Mr. Grumpy on this one. A lot of this is about working with others, changing the mood, changing people's actions, and changing public policy. And that used to feel like it was a team endeavour that we were all engaged in. But the mood music over the last year or so, we rarely get political in these meetings. It's quite often administrative, but I'm going to be quite political about this. That from the current government and from some of the opposition parties, I think there is a movement away from the generally accepted view that action on climate change was a necessary and urgent thing. And I used to laugh when I worked in the sector. I used to laugh at American colleagues who really had to struggle every day to convince people that climate action was required, or that it was urgent. And so in Britain, it's pretty much accepted. I don't think it is anymore. I think there is a job to do, and those of us in parties that do believe that this is the biggest challenge facing us need to get our fingers out and start campaigning again on this issue, and not take it for granted that people agree that the move towards carbon neutrality is a good thing and a necessary thing. So I've got that off my chest. But in terms of this report, so it is what it is, and it actually shows quite good progress. But as I say, there's a 2-year lag, and I worry about what's going to happen over the next 5 years or so. And I'm particularly disappointed in this government, because I thought they were committed to it, and I still think the minister is, but I don't think he's getting his own way. There was a scene recently of him coming out of Downing Street and slamming cardboards and what have you, because he'd clearly been told by the Treasury that he couldn't do half the things he wanted to do. Tony, would you like to sum up?
Yes, I think most of the comments were said in the start. I think if you just look at how far we are ahead of the national average, it's something to be proud of for us, but it's something to worry about for the rest of the country, because we should be a little bit ahead, because we are progressive, we do things the right way. But it does worry me that the rest of the country is so far behind us. But I do think it reflects well on the activities of the council members and officers that we are where we are.
And again, we're asked to note the progress towards meeting the target. Can you see those in favour? So everyone, thank you. Item 10 is the new joint homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. Maggie, to you.
That's me. And so from one crisis to another, we're moving. So what you have in front of you today is our new homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, which will cover the period between 2025 and 2028. This is something that we are required to do. We have had one since 2020, and it's now has been due to be reviewed. The good news is that the previous one has been really successful. I think most of the actions that relate to that strategy have been completed, and as a result, we have had some really positive outcomes, such as very high above national average and regional average homelessness prevention rates, and very low levels of people who are street homeless and people who are in temporary accommodation. But I think what I love about this report and the strategy itself is that it really actually sets out the challenges around homelessness and rough sleeping, but also the misunderstanding that exists about what homelessness is. We often hear homelessness being talked about in the news, usually as a kind of a bit of a wedge issue these days. But I think this report really is something we can all point to, where we can have sober discussions around the challenges that we face as a country in terms of providing what I believe should be a basic human right, having a roof over your head. So I have been given some figures that I can read out to you, which are set out just the national challenges within which we have produced this strategy. So in 2024, 1,600 people who had experienced homelessness had died in the UK, and this as the highest number ever recorded. The average age of those who have very sadly lost their lives is very young. It's 45 years of age. There are approximately 330,000 households per year that are either homeless or at risk of homelessness, and temporary accommodation use is unprecedented, and it is causing a lot of financial hardship for many local authorities around the country as well. And rough sleeping has also risen by 20%, and about 60%, and I think this is a really important point to note, is that 60% of people who are owed homelessness duty have various complex needs. So that could be physical or mental health, victims of domestic abuse or violence, substance misuse as well. So it is important to know that not only is homelessness growing, but the complexity of cases are also growing. And I think that reflects the fact that it is public services are on their knees. We know, not to get too political, but we know why that is. And as a result, homelessness support is almost the kind of last defense. It's the kind of service of last resort, if you see what I mean. And so we are, through supporting people into homelessness, trying to support with so many other challenges as well. So something to explain and why we have homelessness and rough sleeping as two separate, in the title, as two separate items. And I think rough sleeping is what most people will think of when they think of homelessness. In the district, we have generally very low levels, and as part of the strategy, we have also given ourselves this target of effectively end rough sleeping, and I'll come on to that just in a minute. But homelessness is probably the bigger problem, bigger in terms of numbers. It is hidden, it is the sofa surfing, it is the overcrowding, and it is and it could happen to absolutely anyone. I always think that, we are one decision, one event, one illness away from becoming homeless. This is how precarious lives of many people are, and it can genuinely happen to anyone. So that is why it's important, not only from a kind of a moral obligation towards our residents, our friends, neighbours, colleagues, etc., but it is a safety net for us all, and that is why it is important. People who are street homeless or rough sleeping, like I said, we have very small numbers, but really these are the people that are quite difficult to place. They face all sorts of challenges in maintaining a tenancy. There's, like I said, mental health, substance abuse, perhaps history of offending. So they are our more challenging group, but we have some good things. Okay, I'm in a really chatty mood, so this may be all. Sorry, but I think I am really passionate about the subject, but I'll try and speed up a little bit. And so I think, one of the kind of most important takeaways from the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy for me is that we are trying to do something which is really unusual in public service delivery, and that is to move away from being reactive to prevention, but prevention not just in words, as we always talk about prevention in any other public service discussions, but we have done via the previous one, and we are trying to move into prevention even more. And believe it or not, that's something that is quite rare. So in terms of the new strategy and what makes it new, I mean, there are some kind of legislation and bits and bobs that have had to be updated, but there are effectively 5 objectives, which I'll read out, and they are early intervention to prevent homelessness, as I had just mentioned, strong partnership working to tackle complex homelessness, again, that recognition that us alone from a housing perspective will not be able to solve everything. We need social care, we need the voluntary sector, etc., to be able to do that as a partnership. And we need to have very, very good communication and pathways, etc., between different partners. I think we do, but to an extent, but we can always do better, as we know. There is an objective which is to increase access to suitable long-term housing. And of course, this happens through our planning work, as well as some of the affordable housing work teams. But effectively end rough sleeping. Again, a flagship program we have there is Housing First policy, which really does help with these much more complex cases. And finally, to minimise the use of temporary accommodation, I think we have a target of 8 people, no more than 8 people in B&Bs and 20 people in TA, which is the self-contained accommodation, which, you know, for many local authority, this would be an enviable position to be in. And we do use more often than not, much more decent and dignified temporary accommodations, also homes rather than B&Bs. And yeah, some of that is because of our very strong prevention work that our housing needs team does. But we are also, you know, in this type of geography, perhaps that we experience it to a lesser extent as well. So this is, just to draw your attention to the action plan, which is in appendix, I want to say 3, was it? Anyway, towards the end of your document, which sets out the objectives and what we are going to do. And it gives a little bit more a flavour of how we plan to achieve all of these things. And a final word, I promise, is that this has been consulted on quite extensively, firstly with stakeholders, on the basis of which the draft was put on, then it went to public consultation. I was quite disappointed, if I'm honest, with the responses to the consultation, given how much interest there is in this area from the public. I was quite surprised, despite us trying very hard to promote it, and I'm sure we did as well as individual councillors. We didn't get that many, but I think obviously we still got some interesting comments, that's for sure. And of course, we had a session where some of you as members also attended. So this is for the whole council, for all elected members to be able to both learn and contribute to the development of this strategy. So really robust in terms of co-production, I would say. Just to say thank you so much to Tom and Paul. I think I saw Phil. Oh, Phil is there as well, and Phil Ely, for your hard work on this, but also the hard work on the previous homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. And I really do wish you well in the implementation of this one. This is like very long. Sorry.
Yes, I regretted not having looked at my watch when you started. I know how passionate you are about this subject, so my chances of shutting you up were probably quite slim anyway. Do you have a second one? Councillor Simpson. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, all the officers. I was just intrigued to know, and it's just a genuine question. Obviously, we cooperate with other councils as in the way that we operate and to provide wider resilience. I noticed that we do give support, I think, to City with homeless people and so forth, or particularly rough sleepers. And I wasn't sure whether that's because those particular people have connections in South Oxfordshire, or whether it is because we simply have some capacity and we're helping out to provide wider resilience. I'm not suggesting a gender here, I'm just interested to know.
Yeah, well, I'll just start just by saying that we have a county-wide homelessness strategy, and
Yes.
there are various work streams or projects within that, including Housing First, that we do collaborate with. And so at times, actually, they will have people for this kind of more specialist housing, and I'm sure the opposite is true. But in terms of, I don't know if Phil, you want to pick up whether this is very common for us to take people from them in terms of, I mean, certainly when it comes to housing allocation, you know, we would assess who we owe duty to, and that normally wouldn't be people from outside,
To unmet need, when we have Oxford unmet need.
unless it is the unmet needs. But yeah.
Phil, would you
Or
like
Paul.
to add to that? Or Phil, Paul?
Yeah, I'm happy to add to that. I think there's two things here. There's the cooperation across the county with the different districts about the subject of homelessness. And in my own opinion, that actually works very well on a county-wide basis. When it comes to individual homelessness, there are legal provisions about local connection. So those would apply, and people would normally have to present into their local district and be helped within that district. But in terms of the sort of cooperation and the wider structure, I think it's important, and it works well that we do operate on a county-wide basis. And some of the best practice that South and Vale exhibit, we're more than happy to share that both county-wide, and we also share that regionally as well. And we occasionally do presentations to other councils, etc. So strategically, we think it's valuable to work county-wide. But legally, there are local connection provisions for the individuals who may be homeless.
Thanks.
Demonstration of how we cooperate.
Anne-Marie, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I'm going to say a little bit. It won't be too long, but I'm really glad that Phil mentioned best practice, because I know from the time that I've been a councillor that South and Vale have been doing this very well. We're talking about South Oxfordshire tonight. And it's in the report, South Oxfordshire has successful homeless prevention rates consistently 20% above national and southeast averages. So I know that you painted a pretty bleak picture across the country, but I really do want to highlight that we really are really doing something right here. And so I like the fact that our team, who's doing a phenomenal job for us in South Oxfordshire, is also able to share that best practice more widely, not just across Oxfordshire, but what Phil has been telling us is regionally as well. And I think with regard to the consultation responses, I wouldn't take that too negatively, because I think people tend to respond a lot if they're usually upset about something, cross about something. So I like to think that given, you know, our success with the work that we already do, perhaps that is recognised already out there. So I just want to say thank you very much to the officer team.
Anyone else?
I'll speak just, if I may, because I think it is a subject that, you know, rightly we all feel strongly about. And I think I've mentioned in a council meeting before that I volunteered until I became a full-time councillor. I volunteered for some time in a homeless hostel in Oxford, and so, you know, you become very aware of the complex challenges around homelessness, and, you know, in terms of people's needs and the reasons that they find themselves in that position, and how many agencies, bodies it takes to assist in their journey. And, you know, it is such a broad subject, from you know, people sleeping in their cars and sofa surfing, as Maggie spoke about, to rough sleeping and temporary accommodation. It's huge, and clearly early intervention is the key, and I was so pleased to see that so much emphasis on that, and, you know, so a strategy has to recognise all of this, and this strategy has done. So I really wanted to comment on that. I feel that it's a really sensitive and comprehensive strategy, and I think that's looking ultimately to increase access to long-term housing, which has to be the ultimate goal, and as Maggie's suggested, to be dealing with this proactively rather than reactively, and using that multi-agency approach. but anyway, we probably could all talk on this subject, and I just wanted to, I just felt it was important to say that, you know, I fully support this strategy, and I appreciate how much work has gone into making this such a comprehensive approach. So thanks to all who've been involved in that. Thank you to officers.
And I've got one thing which is that I hope that we will use this as a basis for a public education, some public education work, because quite often something pops up on a Facebook page which reveals how little the general public actually knows about the complexities of this subject. And we always, when it's a cold night and we have special provisions, we always advertise that, and people, a number of times you get a comment back saying, oh, you only care about people at this time of year, why don't we care about them the rest of the year? So I hope we can use this as a springboard for some public education about the work that we do, and also how the public can sort of complement that and make use of the facilities that we're offering. So that's my bit. Maggie, would you like to sum that?
Just try and respond really quickly to you. I wasn't going to say anything, but just to say that in the action plan, in the first set of actions, it is very much about alerting the public, residents, in terms of how to do referrals, what we offer. You know, if people are in a difficult situation, very much again to try and get to be proactive and provide this early interventions, as we mentioned. So I think that's definitely in the works, and it was the result of some of the consultations. These suggestions were flagged by I think it's some councillors, but maybe also the public. So yeah, thank you all so much, and I better leave it there.
Looking at the recommendations, we're asked to approve the new strategy and to delegate to the head of service in consultation with the cabinet member to make any minor amendments. Can I see those in favour of that? That's everyone. Thank you. And moving on to item 11. I'm sorry, you're going to be sick of my voice by the end of this meeting, if you're not already. Item 11 is the proposed adoption of the closed churchyards policy. And Councillor James Lorry is unwell this evening, so I'm introducing this item. And under section 215 of the Local Government Act 1972, our councils have a statutory obligation to maintain closed churchyards transferred to us by parochial church councils. This includes ensuring these spaces are kept in good and decent order and that public health and safety is upheld. So Oxfordshire District Council is currently responsible for a total of 12 closed churchyards, and this number is increasing annually. Until now, we've operated without a formal policy, which has led to some inconsistent practices and some costly remedial work and public concern over our performance. Adopting this policy will provide clarity and consistency. It outlines our responsibilities, sets expectations for parochial church councils and residents, enables us to plan maintenance more effectively. It also supports transparency and accountability, aligning with our strategic priorities. There are no immediate financial implications from adopting the policy. However, this policy will help to control finances when the council is asked to take on the responsibility for closed churchyards. Existing maintenance activities are already in the budget. Legal risks have been considered and mitigated, and the policy provides a framework to manage health and safety proactively. In conclusion, this policy is a sensible and necessary step forward. It will help us to meet our statutory obligations, manage risks, and maintain these important community spaces with care and consistency. Delegation will be placed for officers to make minor amendments and for policy review. And so I would commend this report to the Cabinet. Could I have a seconder, please?
Sorry, I thought we were spreading.
Do we have any questions on this? We have Andrew Busby online. If I can't answer it, Lee.
I just have one question. On page 91 in the policy statement, it says the closed churchyard is a churchyard which is closed for burials and where maintenance responsibility has passed to the council. And I just wondered whether it would make sense to insert after burials, including cremated ashes. In other words, that just highlighting the point that there shouldn't be premature transfer without having considered linkages between burials which may have happened there and family links whereby there might be a requirement for ashes to be there. It's a minor one, and maybe one which could be handled by officers. I don't know.
You didn't have to jump very high to reach my knowledge from Andrew. Can you help us with that? Or would that be a minor adjustment that I could delegate to you?
Yes, I'm happy to make that minor amendment, Cabinet, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Seconder, would you like to say anything, or just formally second?
I'm just formally seconding. I think it's fairly fair.
Would anyone like to speak on this? In which case, I won't bother you with any of my subjects. Regards with the officers a few years ago, and I see those in favour. That's second one. Yeah. Item 12 is budget setting for 26-27, and Councillor Barker is unable to be with us this evening, so I'm going to introduce this item. It's a verbal bit of on top of the notes in front of you on where we are with budget setting for next year. So this is the first report on budget setting for 26-27 that the Cabinet's considering. Officers intend to bring forward a further update report to Cabinet just before Christmas, ahead of the final budget setting report, which will be considered by scrutiny and Cabinet before going to Council in February next year. The report provides a background to revenue budget setting activity, an outline of the revenue budget activities already underway and schedule over the coming months, and an outline of the capital budget setting activities. Members around this table will know that they are going to be invited to budget meetings if they haven't already been to discuss with heads of service. This year's budget setting activity takes place against a backdrop of local government reorganisation, doesn't everything, alongside ongoing uncertainty over the future local government funding as central government concludes its fair funding review. Those of you who've been here for a while will know that we're always living in anticipation of a fair funding review. It looks like it's actually going to happen. So that will add a level of uncertainty that previously than that. So on local government reorganisation, the council's activity will become more constrained as the government's guidance increases the restrictions which apply that will impact on the discretion that the council had previously had in setting its budget ahead of the proposed implementation date of April 2028. On future funding, whilst we await the policy statement expected in November and the provisional settlement now scheduled for just before Christmas, doesn't it always just come out just before Christmas? The direction of travel indicated by MHCLG through its recent consultations suggests that government funding for the council is likely to be in line with or potentially better than previous estimates. The 25-26 budget setting report included recommended parameters for the sustainable use of reserves to support the revenue budget. It proposed that the maximum use of reserves to balance the budget should be no more than 10% of the general fund balance, subject to some exceptions identified in the report. Work underway now on preparing the council's base budget will show how the budget compares to the estimate included in the previous medium-term financial plan and the sustainable use of reserves. Those revenue based budgets, together with capital budgets, will be subject to officer and cabinet member challenge in the period between now and Christmas. The next report to cabinet in December will update on the work to date, the funding position, if known, from government, the proposed base budget with a comparison to budget target, and the resulting options for consideration by cabinet. And that's when the fund starts. So I'm proposing that we note the contents of this report, and you're championing a bit already.
I feel like I'm more confused. I have more questions. Is that okay?
Would you like to ask questions?
Simon?
Simon is online. Will no doubt jump to my aid.
Hi, Simon. For what is happening to business rates? Could you elaborate a bit? And what the rationale is?
So in the context of local government funding, there is a business rates reset underway at the moment. So since 2013, councils have been eligible to keep money they earn from business rates over and above a baseline. The intention when that system was set up is that there'd be a reset. So the idea is that there's still an element of redistribution factored into the system. Some areas have done very well out of business rates, some areas have not done so well. So the intention was to always have a reset and sort of start again. That's never actually taken place. But the proposal is that to take place from 2025-26. Now, as it happens, South Oxfordshire has done as well as other authorities in the local area in terms of business rates. So a reset doesn't affect it as adversely as it does if you'd done very well. You'd be losing a lot of money, but it's still a factor for looking ahead. The issue with that as well is that that's the new system, but what's happening with business rates under the fair funding review is, even though all the income you've made and is supposed to be wiped out with the resets, the proposal seems to be that there will be some maintenance of that level as a transition period. So it is confusing because there's a reset, but actually if there's transition support, if you lose out under the reset, then it's essentially not affecting the councils as badly as it will do. So it is a confusing position. We hope the policy statement that's due out at the end, at some point in next month, will give us some more clarity on that.
Okay, thank you so much, Simon.
In summary, we're quite a low risk area compared to other councils on that.
Yeah.
Lee.
One particular, most of this is stuff that's as yet unknown, and we'll have to steer through it when we know whatever it might be. I just had a bit of concern about page 104, section 23, where it starts talking about the capital programme, and it says that the process will allow for officers to propose future capital bids for known upcoming projects in line with the council's capital strategy, with priority given to externally funded schemes, provided they're consistent with LGR guidance. And I read into that, rightly or wrongly, that if it was something like the Didcot Perimeter Road and it had S106, etc. funding, good to go. But if it's housing coming from our own reserves, that might be considered less favourably. And I'm just checking and raising that question because I would argue that actually what we're trying to do is quite important and actually is not inconsistent with government's proclaimed policy.
I'll have a stab at that, and Simon can nod or shake his head as I'm going through it. I don't think that's the interpretation. I think the reason why we have to give a priority to things that are externally funded is that that's quite often time limited. And so if we have government funding or Section 106 funding that has to be spent within a particular period, then obviously that jumps it up the priority list. But there are other priorities as well that have to be weighed. But I think that is what we're indicating there, is that quite often if we've got a partner who is providing some of that funding, then we have to stick to the timetable with them. And that's what jumps it up the priority list. That a good enough answer, Simon?
Yes, thank you. The only thing I would add, I suppose, is that I'd also make a distinction between decisions you've already taken in terms of your budget. So you've put money in the budget for housing, so it's already in there. It is in line with your council plan. You already allude to the fact it's in line with, government policy as well. But I think the critical thing for me at the moment with LGI is it's already in the budget. I think if we were looking at anything significant and new, particularly if it was, a seven-figure sum or more, I think those are the sort of things that, unless there's a legal obligation through a 106 agreement to do it, I think we're struggling with LGR looming to actually put those sorts of items in the budget now.
Understood. I'm reassured. Thank you.
Any more questions?
A million, but I think I will take Lou's advice and just tentatively proceed as we know more.
I'm sure Simon will be happy to receive any questions or Peter Paul that can be taken offline. Can I have someone to second? Georgina, would you like to speak or just hold in a second?
No, I don't think I need to speak at this stage. If it were a couple of months' time, then perhaps I should, but I'm happy to just second.
So, anyone else wishing to speak at this stage? The recommendation is that we note the report, and I think as cabinet members looking at our own departments, we're noting it, and we'll be using it as a reference manual as we go along. Okay, item. Sorry, everyone agreed.
Can we do a quick show of hands?
Show of hands, please, on noting this.
Thank you. Appreciate the decision notice.
Thank you for keeping me in mind. And final item is item 13, which is the budget monitoring report, which again I'll introduce in Councillor Barker's absence. This report reviews the council's revenue and capital expenditure performance against budget during 24-25 to the end of month 3, which is June. Cabinet will recall that the budget for 25-26 was agreed by Council on the 13th of February. The net revenue budget, as outlined in paragraph 6 of the report, was set at £25.5 million. In terms of revenue, as explained in paragraph 7, table 1, the forecast is for an overspend on service revenue of just over £500,000, and investment income is expected to exceed budget by over £2.3 million, giving a total forecast revenue underspend of £1.8 million. On capital, the budgeted approved programme at the end of June was as shown in paragraph 16, table 2, just over £41.4 million, against which over £4.3 million has been spent. Details of significant variances on both capital and revenue budgets are detailed in the report. And to comply with the latest Treasury Management guidance, this quarterly budget report also includes details on Treasury Management activity for the first 3 months, including a commentary on performance and prudential indicators. So I'm proposing this report. Could I have someone to second? Maggie, thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Lee?
I would suggest, Chair, this might be the appropriate section to deal with that scrutiny comment about slippage on CapEx. I noticed that there's a contingency there with a 220,000 adverse variance.
Can you tell us where you're looking, please?
So, I beg your pardon. Yes, page 107. there's a table there, and under contingency, we had a budget to I think say 220, and the forecast is nil. But I was a bit confused by the split between employee and other in relation to that. That somehow we had got a saving of 280 in other.
I don't know where you're looking.
Yes, it's table 1, the breakdown of forecast variance at June 2025 on page 107. The last line of the big box was contingency, which is we have a variance of 220, which is made up of 500,000 employee costs minus 280 other costs. Simon, would you like to leap to our aid?
So effectively, the contingency line is hiding two. Well, it's not hiding. Sorry, it's reflecting two things. One is the managed vacancy factor, which is £500,000, and also then there's the general contingency budget of 400,000. Now, what's going on with obviously the managed vacancy factor is we don't apply that to individual services. So what if the managed vacancy factor is met, what will happen is that there'll be underspent in all the other services that would equate to 500,000 or more, and they'll net off against the 500,000 at the bottom. Clearly, the early forecast you've got at the moment doesn't show that happening, which is why there's an overspend on employee costs. In fact, in reality, there isn't an overspend against the budgeted employee costs in individual teams at the moment, but there isn't a general underspend on salaries that's going to reflect that. The same applies with contingency. We don't, as a rule, and certainly there's been no cause at this stage in the year to actually take money out of contingency and put it into other service budgets. So that at this stage offers an underspend that potentially counts against any overspends in services. So that's why those numbers are showing as they are at the moment.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had is in relation to CapEx. Obviously, we had a roll forward that we show in table 2 on page 109 of 17 million there. And that was a question I think that scrutiny were getting at. I think we've seen those slippages year on year, really. And I guess the implied question is there anything that we could have done about that? Or is it simply due to external factors beyond our control that mean that projects haven't materialised as quickly as we would have liked them to?
I think that they're not genuine slippages in each case. I think some of them are where funds have been allocated but not yet spent, and weren't due to be spent yet. And yeah, I would find it useful to split those two out, but I appreciate that it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So it's a combination of both of those. Simon?
I was just going to make an observation that, I mean, we're currently doing capital budget challenge at the moment, and an hour before this meeting, or 2 hours before this meeting, I was in a capital budget challenge session, and as an example, we had a project where full spending this year, and the conversation with the manager said, well, actually, we might spend it by March if we're lucky. Well, in that case, we'll put it in next year then. That's the conversation we've had. We can slip forward as well as back in the programme. So I think it's more realistic in that case to show that expenditure in March, taking place in the next financial year. And I think we're getting better at doing that going forward in terms of taking that approach. I think we've been managers are prone to optimism bias on this. And in part it's because they want to deliver these projects, and they want to deliver these projects now. So as far as they're concerned, they want to put them in this year because that's what they're aiming for. We're really trying to get them to say, well, actually, are you really going to deliver it this year? Because if you've got doubt, we'll put it in next year.
Sure. So it's a sharper profiling. Okay.
I think we've got a lot better at this. I think when we first started, most of that carry forward was funds that were allocated at the beginning of the project that were never intended to be spent over the next 2 or 3 years. I think we've got a lot better at profiling now.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? In which case, can I have a seconder? Lee, would you like to say anything or formally say
I
anything?
just suggest we approve the report.
Thank you. And any more contributions?
Just as a thanks to Simon for over so many years, so faithfully trying to explain to us how local government accounting works, and that's also faithfully forgetting in between budget settings. So thank you so much, Simon. I'm sure there are more questions to come. Yeah.
I would second that. I think we have 3 accountants around the table, and that doesn't make it any easier. Probably makes it worse. In which case, our recommendation is the Cabinet notes the contents of this report. I can see those in favour. Everyone. In which case, that's the end of the meeting.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bertie. Do you mind finishing the broadcast for us?